People. Okay. Second roll of the day. Please stand. The Holy Gospel according to Matthew, the 13th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus put before the crowds another parable. The kingdom of heaven may be compared to someone who sowed good seed in his field. But while everybody was asleep, an enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat, and then went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared as well. And the slaves of the householder came and said to him, "Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where then did these weeds come from?" He answered, "An enemy has done this." The slave said to him, "Then do you want us to go and gather them?" But he replied, "No, for in gathering the weeds you would uproot the wheat along with them. Let both of them grow together until the harvest. And at harvest time I will tell the reapers, 'Collect the weeds first and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn.'" Then Jesus left the crowds and went into the house. And his disciples approached him, saying, "Explain to us the parable of the weeds of the field." He answered, "The one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed are the children of the kingdom. The weeds are the children of the evil one, and the enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are angels. Just as the weeds are collected and burned up with fire, so will it be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will collect out of his kingdom all causes of sin and all evildoers, and they will throw them into the furnace of fire, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of the Father. Let anyone with ears listen." That is the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Please be seated. So unsurprisingly, I had forgotten that I was scheduled to preach this week. So when Matthew, our amazing musician, approached me with a question on Monday about my sermon, I was more than a bit surprised. So on Sunday, he said, "Are you going to preach Parable of the Weeds with fire and brimstone, or, it's Parable of the Weeds?" That's how I remember you saying that. Obviously, not knowing I was preaching, I had no answer, although fire and brimstone is not usually my go-to, although you may change your mind after today's sermon. Sorry. It left Matthew wondering why we hired such a flighty person anyway. So my next step was obviously to read the text for today. And that's when I really panicked, because absolutely no one wants to preach when there are furnaces of fire and weeping and gnashing of teeth going on. So, luckily, since I'm married to the other pastor, I told him that actually he was going to preach this week, and that I would find another Sunday which was more suitable to my touchy-feeling way of being. That's why his name is actually in today's bulletin. And yet, here I stand. Because that's when the Spirit decided to do her wily work and gave me a few words to say and a sermon that I needed to hear. Here we go. Driving down Walnut Street the next day, so on Tuesday, I saw a bumper sticker. "The greatest hate is Christian love." It took me a minute. The greatest hate is Christian love. And instantly, arguments began to boil up inside of me. But what about the beautiful ministry that our high schoolers just experienced? What about the 500 people that were fed a free meal before the parade? What about the money that was just raised for the food pantry? What about? And I spiraled, trying to justify myself, trying to justify all of us, trying to fight against the Spirit and where she was trying to lead me. Because then I realized, indeed, we are the weeds. Christians as a whole, over the centuries, have done unspeakable things in the name of a God they claim to love. Forget the Crusades. Just in the United States alone, Salem witch trials, the enslavement of people of color, the oppression of women, the condemnation of those in the LGBTQ community, and most recently, the fear and hatred toward immigrants in our neighborhoods. Time and time again, in the name of God, we have condemned and shunned and killed others because we believe them to be the weeds in God's world. And my stomach hurts and my heart aches when I decide, despite all of that, yes, this is a group of people, a bunch of weeds that I still want to be a part of. So now, before I drive all of you away, reflecting on our painful Christian history, I'm going to shift gears for a moment and share with you a story. Most likely you have already heard this story. Listen to it anyway. The Two Wolves, a Cherokee story. A young boy came to his grandfather filled with anger at another boy who had done him injustice. The old grandfather said to his grandson, "Let me tell you a story. I too at times have felt a great hate for those that have taken so much with no sorrow for what they do. But hate wears you down, and hate does not hurt your enemy. I've struggled with these feelings many times. It is as if there are two wolves inside of me. One wolf is good, does no harm. He lives in harmony with all around him, does not take offense when no offense was intended. He will only fight when it is right to do so and in the right way. But the other wolf is full of anger. The littlest thing will set him into a fit of temper. He fights everyone all the time for no reason. He cannot think because his anger and hate are so great." Sometimes it's hard to live with these two wolves inside me because both of the wolves try to dominate my spirit. The boy looked intently into his grandfather's eyes and asked, "Which wolf will win, grandfather?" Grandfather smiled and said, "The one I feed." We, as individuals and as a community, are both weeds and wheat. We, like the two wolves, hold both inside of us. We can choose the way of hate and depression and fear and become malignant growths in the world. Or we can choose forgiveness and love and grace and be the flourishing wheat that God calls us to be. Now, you know, as good Lutherans, that it is only God who saves us, that gathers us in, both weeds and wheat, and through Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, adopts us as children, marks us beloved, and gives us the gift of wholeness in life. But we are also called to respond to that gift. We are sent forth by that wily Spirit to make choices so that we grow into the thriving wheat that God has created us to be. Now, this sermon is going longer than normal, but bear with me a little bit longer, because I'm going to read you another poem and a bit of a reflection from a little group called the SALT Project. So maybe you've heard of Mary Oliver's oft-quoted poem about our wild and precious life. It's actually the last line of the poem. The full poem, The Summer Day, reflects on a day she spent kneeling in a summer field, singly paying attention to the life of a grasshopper. She writes, "Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away." I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. What if? What if the way we nurtured the wheat to grow among us was as simple as paying attention? Was as simple as looking up from our phones or turning off the incessant TV news that further fuels our anger and frustration? What if the way we nurtured wheat to grow among us was simple as focusing less on the sins of the world today and more on creating relationships with our neighbors? Was as simple as leaving the dishes undone, or dare I say, the weeds sprouting in the garden? What if nurturing the wheat in ourselves and in our community was as simple as kneeling in the grass, or pushing a child on a swing, or listening to a story from a grandfather? What if we took to heart those words from Romans and lived in hope for what we do not see, and wait for it with patience? What if nurturing wheat to grow was as simple as choosing to be present in the little patch of grass in front of us, right here, right now, with the flowers around us? And in doing so, not only have we lived a little bit more like Jesus, but we have faithfully and lovingly responded to the gift of life that God has given us. "Tell me what else I should have done," Oliver writes. "Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?"